Hey everyone, my name is Amanda, but for most of you who grew up with Tony, my name is Tony's sister. Leading off, actually, Woody and I are going to take turns reading this one, but this story is entitled The Six Cans, and this is just one of his little narratives that I think you guys would enjoy. It was late spring. I'd been back about 5 months, and everyone was coming around, just like the old days. I was up in my graffiti-soaked war zone of a bedroom, watching a 56-inch television that looks conspicuous against the urban decay decor. Over by the door was the six-pack, snot green, 16-ounce cans of a strange and disgusting alcoholic beverage called pulque. The sour tang of cactus combined with the complete lack of carbonation had managed to provoke immediate vomiting spasms in all three of its first victims, twice quite successfully. I'd cracked the first can right away in my buddy's car in the parking lot. My look of abject horror at the awful pungency of... My look of abject horror at the awful pungency of the experience was enough to spurn my friend Jeremy's curiosity, and he grabbed the can from my hand and slugged it down in a gulp. Immediately, he was sideways out of the car with his head between his knees, spewing the light splash of the foul stuff along with everything else he had had that day and onto the concrete. I looked at the can with pure awe as the stuff's cheap alcohol slowly rose to my head and the aftertaste forced my throat into an involuntary gag. This shit was terrible. But something stayed in my mind about the way my friend's morbid curiosity had gotten the best of him so quickly. He'd thrown up an $18 steak in the aftermath of that foolish little impulse, after all. I decided to finish that can of pulque in a sort of homage to what I suddenly knew I had to do, which was to conduct a sneaky little social experiment with my new discovery. I was reacquainting myself with my old gang of Houston hood rats, and I figured I'd just check as many of my boys as I could for that good old rift of self-destruction that had always been such a deciding factor in our social activities. A little reminder, say, of who we were and where we'd come from. With this initial sacrifice act, I would be leaving no room for any half-assed responses. If I'd gotten a can down and kept it down with an eyeball witness to boot, I proved it possible, leaving only two options for my victims: either get one down also or empty your guts trying. I got to work. The Vietnamese supermarket where I stumbled upon the stuff was on the other side of downtown from my neighborhood, so I had about 17 minutes of ride time to get it done. By the last sip, I was breathing slowly and deeply, bent over and clenching my stomach, with one hand on the dash to steady myself, aiming a stream of begging pleas at... With one hand on the dash to steady myself, aiming a stream of begging pleas at Jeremy to please, for Christ's sake, drive slower and less recklessly. Being the poison's purveyor, I didn't get much mercy. But it is a testament to either my determination or my rampant alcoholism that I was able to conquer that one can minus Jeremy's one swallow, the effects of which were still evident in his sour scowl.
Brand name La Lucha. So there I was with 4 cans of awful tasting liquid that I'd already made 2 of my friends mad with. Thinking about it would send me into spells and I'd giggle my motherfucking ass off. It was the best 7 and change I'd ever spent. And these 2 guys had to have in too. See? Otherwise, they just stayed suckers. I figured any tactic was fair game. After all, I drank a whole can of the stuff, where my buddies had only had a sip. So if anybody was having flipper babies behind this mess, I'd at least be one of them. Nick loved it. He didn't so much love that I'd openly bested him to his face, using his own weakness of curiosity while spelling it out to him play by play, but he loved that a person could be tricked into something foolish, and then he could be part of it. The winning part of it next time, presumably. So we hung around a lot. He'd call and see if it was beginning to look like company and drinking weather, and pedal his bike or something right over if it began to look like it was. The first guy we got, we nailed it. Mikey Hillbig. What we did was this. We each had phones, and we each had single drinks, 24 ounces of something, enough to show that we're drinking, but we made sure to have them over 2/3 drank by the time he showed, with the paper bag ripped and soggy. Then after greeting Mikey at the door, we let him upstairs without offering him a thing. He had to walk right past the table with the 4 pulques on it, which, by the way, I had let stay out to bring to room temperature. It seemed only right. The drink was already so nasty. Why not take it all the way? Then we guzzled the last of our glass bottles of import beer, noting his attention, his near starts at asking for a swig, a full one, a drive to the liquor store. Like theater players, noting each other's cues, we stood up at the same time and walked about, going to the corner store for refills, talked about going to the corner store for refills. Mikey stood up eagerly, and we all moved as one, until just at the door by the table on which the pulques sat, Nick's phone made a noise. From outside or self-induced, to this day I don't know. I stopped also to examine my cell phone screen, and as we both wrapped ourselves up looking busy with our calls, Mikey paused and swayed unsteadily. His eyes opened, his mouth started to speak, but then stopped. He didn't know what to do with himself. Finally, he gestured towards the pulque, and I gave him a thumbs-up signal, while Nick gave him a down-the-hatch type can-tilting motion with his hand, both of us still appearing too caught up on our phones to answer any questions such as, "What is it? Should I have one? What is it doing out of the fridge?" etc. Our ruse went over perfectly. Afterwards was kind of a fresh but unsteady time. We were too old to be staging gang initiations, but there we were doing it, though in a less serious and humorous manner. What horrible friends.
All right. The last 3 cans. I don't know for the life of me how we got Louis to drink one. Christ, he's actually Mexican. I think we'd had to take him out and get him drunk, then keep him awake past last call at the bar, and then take him to my house where that was all there was to drink, alcohol-wise. We had to get grim and realistic about it, and just all out take advantage of the drunken recklessness we knew he possessed. There was no staging, no misleading, just, all right, motherfucker, I got a brew for you, and it's nasty, and it's lukewarm, but it's all I got, and it'll get you fucked up. We spoke so callously to each other already, it wasn't even necessary to hide what we were doing exactly. All we had to leave out was the part about how we were premeditating these pulque encounters in a conspiracy created in deference to the sheer awfulness of the experience of drinking one. A slight omission. Right. The thing about Louis is he's always been breathtakingly unpretentious. He's a couple years older than myself, and the last 3 guys who'd faced the can so far. And when he puked, it was without reservation, without finesse. It was brutal and crucial and undeniably real. He meant that puke, God damn it, and you weren't going to take that away from him. Seemed to be the overall message. And afterwards, he allowed himself to remail in full post-vomit glory, strands of hair in his eyes and a film crusting the corners of his mouth. He was very accepting the whole time. I thought it was very noble. Woody is one of my most intellectually active friends. As a writer, he is extremely prolific, and his activity has always been mentally engaging, even as they dabble from time to time into drunken, disorderly mayhem. He presents a very composed and respectful approach at all times. I don't believe he was truly fooled when he drank his. We represented the pulque to him in a more challenging fashion, and he took it and drank it deeply and with a braced and boldly launched hurtle into the pulque experience. He stopped, eyed the can once more with the respect of a swordsman engaging a worthy foe, and as the juice began to hit his guts, he earnestly pushed one more mighty drink down before setting the can down neatly and precisely, just in order to dash to the restroom to meet the porcelain throne. When he reemerged, his eyes and manner said, "Yeah, that was tough enough to justify the build-up." Sure. He was a great sport about it, and I could do nothing more than respect him for the heart that he showed. The word was out about the pulque. There would be no more triumphs of wit for me in these cans, but there would be one more triumph of the wit derived from the last can, and except I never guessed that the triumph would be over me.